The night smelled of smoke and iron when the shot cracked through the quiet of a small American town. One bullet, a flash of arrogance, and a life splintered against pavement. The man who fell wasn't just another civilian. He was Samuel Green, a decorated black veteran, father of 2 and survivor of 3 tours in Afghanistan. His body hit the asphalt with the weight of someone who had carried his country through wars, only to be betrayed at home by the very uniform that claimed to protect. The shooter wore blue, Officer Daniel Rourke, the type of cop who carried himself like a soldier but had never been tested by anything harsher than paperwork and the weight of his own ego. His badge was polished, his jaw clenched, and his voice trembling with the false bravery of a man who only felt powerful when staring down someone he thought society had already marked. Rourke had seen Samuel late that night, walking from his car toward the small grocery store near Main Street. No weapon, no threat, just a man on his way to buy milk for his kids. But for Rourke, Samuel's skin was enough to blur reality into paranoia. He barked orders Samuel didn't need to hear, because Samuel had heard them all before, in airports, in traffic stops, in neighborhoods where he was the only one who looked like him. Hands up, don't move, get down. Samuel raised his hands, calm but firm, telling the officer he was unarmed, that he was a veteran, that he wasn't a threat. The words didn't matter. Rourke's finger twitched, his training failed him, and the gun barked once. Samuel collapsed. What Rourke didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Samuel's death wasn't going to just disappear into another blurred headline, another chalk outline forgotten on the streets of America. The military still had its eyes on Samuel. Not because he was famous, not because he had medals, but because of the man he truly was, a hero woven into the tight, unseen networks of brothers and sisters in arms who never left one of their own behind. The bullet that ended Samuel's life didn't just pierce his body, it triggered alarms in places Rourke had never even imagined. In the Pentagon, his name surfaced in a classified file labeled Eagle Watch. Samuel had been a key intelligence asset overseas, trusted with operations that never made it into newspapers but shifted the balance of wars. Quietly, the military had always kept track of him, not as surveillance, but as protection. Veterans like Samuel, who carried dangerous knowledge and had saved countless lives, were never allowed to simply vanish.
When Samuel's blood hit the pavement, so too did a signal ripple through those networks. A call went out, a case was opened, and suddenly the blue uniform that had felt untouchable was standing in the crosshairs of forces far larger than local politics. The town tried to bury it quickly. Local media painted Rourke as following procedure. A press release claimed Samuel had been non-compliant. But even as he said it, unease crawled up his spine. He started noticing things. The SUV parked near his home late at night. Faces in the crowd during his morning coffee run that felt too focused on him. Phone calls that dropped into static when he answered. He drank more. His temper cracked sharper. He told himself he was being paranoid, but paranoia is what happens when guilt crawls through the cracks of a man's bravado. Meanwhile, Samuel's family was left to drown in grief. His wife, Angela, sat in their kitchen staring at unopened letters of condolence that felt more like government apologies stamped with empty ink. His son, Marcus, refused to speak for days, his silent rage coiled tight like a spring. His daughter, Chloe, only 7, kept asking when her father would come back. Angela didn't know yet that she wasn't alone. Because in a hangar hundreds of miles away, men and women Samuel had once saved were preparing to return the debt. Veterans, intelligence officers, and soldiers who owed their lives to Samuel gathered quietly,
bound not by orders, but by loyalty. To them, this wasn't about politics or race or even law. It was about justice for a brother. They didn't plan to wait for the courts. Courts had failed men like Samuel before. They planned to bring justice their own way. And in the shadows, the military's watchful eyes did not blink. The funeral was heavy with silence, broken only by the rattling sobs of those who had stood beside Samuel in both war and peace. Rows of uniforms, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, filled the small-town church, their presence a quiet declaration that Samuel Green wasn't just another casualty to be forgotten. The folded flag given to Angela trembled in her hands, her knuckles white as though holding on tight enough might keep him from slipping completely away. Officer Rourke didn't attend. He drove past the church that day, eyes narrowed, muttering curses under his breath about overreactions and political theater. In his mind, he was untouchable. The Union had his back. The sheriff's department closed ranks around him. The town's mayor praised him for his service. But in every corner of his life, shadows lingered, shadows he couldn't shake. He started noticing strange mail with no return addresses, his tires slashed, anonymous phone calls whispering his badge number, his home address, his darkest secrets. He couldn't prove anything, but deep inside, fear fermented like poison. What Rourke didn't know was that the storm wasn't coming. It was already here. A week after Samuel's burial, the military moved, not with tanks or troops, but with precision.
And then they uncovered the real rot. Rourke hadn't just made a mistake. He had a history. Suppressed complaints of racial profiling, violence against black men during traffic stops, falsified reports, all protected by a system that considered him valuable for his aggressive policing. But the military didn't play politics. They played war. And in war, when corruption threatened the unit, it was rooted out without hesitation. Rourke's life began to unravel. First, his bank accounts froze. Then his side hustle, a security company he ran off duty, lost contracts overnight, canceled mysteriously. His wife received an anonymous envelope filled with screenshots of his text messages to another woman. His closest allies in the department began distancing themselves, suddenly unwilling to burn with him. The walls closed in, and Rourke lashed out. One drunken night, he stormed into the local bar, ranting about being hunted, screaming Samuel's name. "They're coming for me," he shouted, fist slamming the counter. But the crowd didn't rally behind him. They stared in silence, because whispers had spread through town, whispers of the military men watching, gathering, preparing. Then came the night that ended it. Rourke drove to Samuel's gravesite, bottle in hand, shouting curses into the darkness. "You ruined me," he screamed at the tombstone, spittle dripping from his mouth. "You and your damn brothers. You think you're better than me?" But he wasn't alone. From the shadows, figures emerged. Brooks and the veterans, their faces hard with the weight of justice. "This isn't about being better," Brooks said, stepping forward.